Before diving into the contents of today's event, I would like to welcome especially Dr. Alois Kraut, the Austrian ambassador here in Macedonia. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Kraut. Also, I would like to welcome Daniel Schroth from the delegation of the European Commission here in Skopje. The title we post today is Benefits from Building Alliances with Energy Stakeholders. The purpose of this workshop is to show how cooperation amongst institutions or organizations that have common interest can benefit of all partners. Indeed, E-Control has continuously worked on expanding its network of local, national and international partners ever since its establishment and has gained exceedingly positive experience with such collaboration, which in the end is for the benefit of energy consumers. To show today how exploiting synergies benefits all contributors, I will shortly hand over to E-Control's Managing Director Walter Boltz, who will give us an overview of the cooperation and initiatives the Austrian regulator has experienced over the years. Then the ERC President, Dietmar Petrov, will demonstrate how stakeholder cooperation at national and regional level has produced benefits in Macedonia. After a short coffee break, 3 Austrian partners will be presented. Mr. Bruckner from the Austrian Standardization Agency TÜV, Mr. Köster from the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber, and Ms. Haubner from the Austrian Competition Authority will present their views on how collaboration with E-Control worked for them and how they benefited from it. I would like to thank our partners for the availability to contribute to our workshop and their willingness to share their experience with us. It's a great pleasure to have you here. The workshop will then be concluded by Marko Bislimowski of the ERC, my counterpart as project leader in the Twinning project. We also hope that networking and talks during the break or after the closing of today's event would strengthen your connections or maybe even lead to a new joint project. Such contacts are the basis upon which any network must be built, and we would be delighted to be able to contribute to this development with our workshop. So now I can lean back and leave our speakers to convenience of you, great benefit, and hand over to Walter Boltz.
A warm welcome also from my side. It's a pleasure always for me to be here. I will try to give you in the next roughly 30 minutes an overview of how E-Control, since its establishment 10 years ago or 9.5 years ago, has tried to develop and strengthen and continuously extend cooperations and partnership with other institutions, other groups and stakeholders in the energy market, with the purpose of having sort of mutual benefits for both sides. When you have a regulatory authority, especially a newly started regulatory authority, of course you start to think, how do you position yourself in the market? By definition, you are much, much smaller than the regulated entities. So you need to figure out how can you create a balance, because you need a balance. You need a structure whereby the regulator and the regulated entities are both contributing to a process where one is not dominating the other, and where we have sort of an equally balanced influence on what happens to assure that there is a positive outcome. So this balance can be more easily achieved if you have a good set of cooperation partners. It is clear that the institution of a regulatory authority is in most countries a new one, so it's not well known since 45 years, it's a new one. So you need to find your own niche, your own image, your own position in this business and energy world. So we immediately said, okay, we need to have allies, because the business of regulating the energy industry is not that easy. The relative influence of energy industry versus regulator is not static, but sometimes one is ahead, then the other one is ahead, and so you have to continuously work on it. The second point is, as a regulator, you are in this whole world of stakeholders, people who have an interest in energy. You're a very small entity, which means you have only limited experience and probably a distorted view of reality, because you are not a user. I mean, of course, the staff people are also users of electricity and gas at home, but you need to have a constant relationship with people who use energy, who are somehow affected by energy issues, to have the full set of information available. I think the first step is you look at what you do and in which areas cooperation with stakeholders could be helpful, and where they could also be beneficial to the stakeholders, of course, because they will not work together with you just for fun. They will only do it if they gain some benefit from it. Of course, you would want to have a diverse cooperation set, so not just with one or two institutions, but with a broad set of institutions. And you need to manage this relationship, because then you have a more stable partnership if it's an interaction not just between sort of heads of institutions and then nothing below, but if this relationship is kind of strengthened by having several people in the various institutions involved in it. Just a simple example, which maybe is not that obvious. One area of cooperation is schools for us. Now, what's our added value? We feel that it is necessary and useful to make young people aware of the benefits of liberalization, of some basic informations about the structure of the energy sector, because they are the consumers of tomorrow. They will make a decision to either waste energy or not, to change supplier or not, to be aware of the different types of energy offered, or just go to the default supplier and not think about it. And of course, for the schools, it's also interesting to have some outside input into their curriculum with some sort of new ideas and some maybe more unusual ways of offering information. So we have established a school package, we call it internally, but it's basically an internet-based education unit. So one example, which is a little bit outside of what you would expect a regulator to do. Another one is, and where we did learn a lot actually, is this project we did for the socially deprived people who are less able to deal with their energy needs. We thought we would like to understand better how they act in the market or not, how they behave. So we did a cooperation with one of a non-profit association. Caritas is an organization close to church. Probably Caritas also exists here. And so together with them, we provided some advice on the handling of energy, some support in reducing energy consumption, kind of a package with some very basic elements. Somebody came to their homes and told them, okay, you can do this to reduce your energy bill, and some background information. And we learned a lot how this group of people who are living sort of below the level of normal average income are faring in the energy sector. So one example from this is that we now are proposing, and hopefully this will become the law, that there is a standardized process for the network operator and the supplier to go through before somebody is disconnected. So just two examples, and maybe let me get into this in a more systematic way. We have 4 areas where we have continuous, repeated, ongoing cooperation. This is the media, then of course with other authorities, specific interest groups, Chamber of Commerce, unions, and so on. So it's just a small sample. When we sat down here, we found, we do this and this and this. So this is a relatively important part of our work. I mean, it's not something we do every day, but we do it on a regular basis. And there are some corporations that are continuous and some that just happen for a couple of months, and then there's nothing for a year or two, and then something new happens. I think it's important to have enough connections and cooperations with different groupings in the country to make sure that you are well plugged in with what happens where. So in summary, I think it is, for us, it's a part of our regular way of doing business. It's not something you can turn on or off. It's something you have to develop over a few years to build trust, to build confidence, to understand each other. I think most of our partners would today say this was a good idea, that they were approached by e-control, and that this cooperation was established. Thank you very much. Dietmar.